Boss of Blades.
Hello YouTubes, and today we are going over the Mythic League 5 runner-up and winner for their deck lists, and we're going to go give our analysis on how we think their card choices may have been and their sideboard as well. So first, we are doing Nayaboy slash Marvin's Kaya list here. The first thing that's very interesting is he is running the Yawning Portal as his land, which has a chance to give him a random legendary instead of drawing a card, but he doesn't get the mana, which is honestly really cool. You will actually get the mana, but it'll be empty, so you will consistently get mana, but instead of getting a random card in his deck, which after turn 6 may not be relevant, you could get something that's just any legendary, which could be good, it could be bad, but on average it would be better than anything else that he could draw. Then for his 1-drops, he's running 1 Lingering Spirit and 2 Fledgling Gryffs as flyers, 1 Silent Prowler to be able to sneak, and 1 copy of Elite Vanguard. 1 copy is pretty strong. He does actually have another one in the sideboard. Elite Vanguard is very good for trading against stuff like Krosan Tusker, and also it has that 3 power, so it could trigger Kaya's ability if your opponent does not put down a turn 1 blocker. And of course, we have 2 copies of Cut Down. The main reason to run Kaya is the efficiency of removal. It just deals 1 damage to anything, and then it comes back to your hand after you complete a mission, which is, of course, very strong. Then we have Silver Griffin, 1/3 flyer for 2. Just another flying attacker. There is no Destabilize here, which is something I would bring up, is Destabilize is very strong with Cut Down, because it would let you kill any creature by making its health 1, and then dealing it 1 damage to take it down. And so it's kind of different to not see Destabilize to combo with Cut Downs here. Vengeful Brute is a staple Kaya card, easy 2 of, deals 2 damage to each player, works with the Cut Down, 3/2 for 2. Very strong debut for Kaya decks. Counterfeiter, a lot of people think that it might just be the strongest card that you could actually just start swinging with in Kaya, because you get a copy of a random card from your opponent's deck, which could be, it's anything. It could give you another board wipe if you need it for later. It could give you a Critter Hoof. There's a lot of really good stuff the Counterfeiter does, and his baseline is a 2/1 for 2 with just Sneak, making him a Prowler that gives card advantage for 1 more mana. Interesting, he does run Drain Blood, drain 2 from an enemy creature for 2 mana, which, once again, would be really strong with Destabilize, but there is no actual Destabilize in this list. Then we have 2 Dark Confidants, 3/2 for 2. On attack, deals 2 damage to yourself, and you draw a card. Very good card. Gives you card advantage, has 3 power for triggering Kaya's ability. We have 2 Merchant of Deaths, which is a very interesting ad. It's just a simple 2/1 for 2, and on Finale it draws a card, but you don't actually see this card used in a lot of Kaya lists for aggression, because it does only have 2 power, but it does maintain the ability to maintain card advantage if you were to have it get Finale'd, but it's not a very aggressive option. A lot of people like the Snarring Geist, because he is 2/1 fire for 2, which is of course absent from this list, so very interesting ad here with the Merchant of Death. Then we have 2 Daggerclaw Imps, 3/1 for 2 flying, but cannot block. You don't really care because it has 3 power, and turn 1 it's extremely strong for getting the Kaya ability off. Kaya's Enforcer, 2/1 for 2 with Sneak and Armor, phenomenal card. Trades very well for Veil Curse Predator because of its armor ability, and is also good against other stuff such as Chandra for the ability to have the armor, and 2 for 1 a lot of the time. And we have 1 copy of Stoneforge Mystic, because there is another tech here that he's running that splits between the Mystics. But Mystic is, of course, 2/3 for 3. It gives you a Mystic weapon, which could give any drafted upgrade. It could give armor, it could give haste, it could give ward, reach, flying, or it could just give raw stats. Very good card, and interesting for the 1 of here. The other card he's running that actually did a lot of work throughout the tournament was Blood Chalice. which is a 2-charge artifact for 3. On activate, it deals 1 damage to yourself and gives a friendly creature +2/+1. Very strong card, and actually it's a really strong turn 2 if you go second, because you can give a Gryff or a Lingering Spirit +2/+1, and now it's hitting for 3. So it's a lot stronger than Weapon Rack here because of that extra +1 power. Then we have Power Word Stun, stun an enemy creature for the rest of the game. Very good removal spell. It's interesting he's only running 1 because he is running 2 Flagrant Fouls, which just outright destroys the creature. I'm guessing it's because the foul is stronger against green decks, where they can still use like Grudge Match with a permanently stunned creature to continue to take out your creatures. Then, of course, very interesting tech here with one of Day of Judgment, destroy all creatures, which is of 7 mana versus everything else in the deck costs 4 or less. So Day of Judgment, if he's just behind on the board, has a bunch of the cards that Kaya created with her missions, then you can Day of Judgment, follow up the next turn, playing down a bunch of these spirits, and just take over the game from there. And another card that's not in this list that is usually run is both Invoke the Dawn to increase power gains, and basically you have +1/+1 to 3 different cards for just 1 mana. And the other card is Devoted Steed, is a different kind of card that's not in here, which just gives a +1/+1 for a 2-drop, which I think actually would have been a very strong add for the ability to give to a Silent Prowler to go to swing for 3 damage. But next, let's go ahead and go over the sideboard. So this is Nayaboy's side list here. He runs Hellmouth Cave, which is a change in land. So if he wants to go more aggressive, he can put in the Hellmouth Cave to start giving the +1/+0 to all of his attackers. I think a lot of people criticize saying the Yawning Portal may not have done as much, and the Hellmouth probably should have been the main land. I would counter that Moorland Haunt or Training Grounds might actually been Training Yard may have been actually the stronger include, but it did work pretty well for him. He did hit to the finals, and the Hellmouth Cave did probably change up a lot of his matchups to make him the aggressor. Card I'm very impressed with seeing in the sideboard here was the Decorative Armor, which might actually be potentially a main deck include, because it gives you a 3/3 with haste for 4, 3 times in a Chalice. And a lot of the time it could be that one decisive creature to be able to push for extra damage. Your opponent doesn't really want to trade with it because it does have fleeting and goes away at the end of turn. There's a second Elite Vanguard, like a lot of the time, as stated in the main deck part of the video. Elite Vanguard trades very well with Crows and Tusker and a lot of green early drops, which normally Kaya deck might actually struggle with. And there's one Frontline Paladin, which is a very interesting sideboard slot here. I'm guessing it's for like a Chandra and other aggressive, just having another creature with armor. And then Thwack, which he did actually sideboard in, we saw a few times. It's a pretty interesting card. For 4 mana, it stuns 2 creatures, so it takes them off attacking. And if all your opponent has 2 creatures, you can swing with the team, get Kaya's ability, potentially stun something else the next turn. So Thwack can definitely do some work, and I don't see it being a main deckable card, but here in the sideboard, it does actually make a lot of sense. Alright, so here we have the Mythic League 5 winner, which was Frost. He is running for his land Wardland Hermitage, which gives you a creature instead of a mana gem, starting on turn 6. Very standard land sometimes for Nissa. Very interesting ad for Domri, where most of the time you would go for the Ember Crags, because that gives you 2 creatures for, and it still gives you the Fragile Mana Gem as well, which means you keep on mana, and it also gives you 2 creatures to potentially get a boar, and that's usually pretty strong because it's really strong with the Critter Hoof Behemoth. But here he's just trying to get creatures. It's more like a mid-range type of list, where he's just trying to play out creatures with big stats, and then just curve out. Very simplistic kind of style of Domri that we rarely actually see. So for 1-drops, he has the Sundancer with Moonlight. So if he has 2 mana at the end of his turn, it will transform into a 4/3, which A lot of the time you could just pass turn 2 and it will flip. Then we have Channeler Might. Simple 2/2 for 1, gets +1/+1 if you have a creature with 5 or greater power in hand. He does actually have a total of 5 creatures that have 5 power or greater, giving roughly a 20% chance to flip if you open with a Channeler, plus getting an additional chance for each additional draw that could be a 5 power or greater. Then we have Bird's Paradise. Simple 0/1 flyer, gives you a fragile mana gem. Pretty much a staple card in every green deck, just about, except for maybe Garrick, because it lets you play a 4-drop on turn 2 if you go second, or a 3-drop on turn 2 if you go first, and also it will work really well with the Werewolves for giving you the fragile mana gem without having to actually use it. A very interesting tech here is the one of Hunter's Moon. It flips all of your creatures with Moonlight and gives them haste. So one play we saw him do quite often was actually play turn 5 Daybreak Ranger and Hunter's Moon to flip the Ranger immediately and then swing with it as a 5 power with Reach as well, which was a very strong play and very good against Marvin, but I believe he said that one Hunter's Moon was correct and that he would not play any more copies because they would be dead draws, but that Daybreak combo was a lot of the reason that Hunter's Moon was included. Then we have 2 Tormoglyphs, 0/1 for 2. For every card type in your graveyard, it gets an additional +2/+2. Very strong card on a 2-drop. A lot of the time, playing it as a 4/5 for 2 is going to outcase almost any other 2-drop. But playing it as an 8/9, which is entirely possible here. Here he has the creatures, he has the spells. It does not appear as though there's any artifacts, so we actually will cap at a 6/7. Still an incredible 2-drop at that point. Then we have 2 Elvish Archers, 2/4 for 2 with Reach. Very strong ad here against his opponent Nayaboy because there was a large amount of flyers in Nayaboy's list, and Archer was very strong at being able to keep them at bay and prevent Kaya from completing her missions. Krosan Tusker, 4/3 for 2, arguably one of the best 2-drops in the game, maybe seconded by Watchwolf, because 3/4 is usually a better line than a 4/3. But Krosan Tusker is a phenomenal card, and despite his simplicity of just being a 2-drop with undercosted stats. Then we have Grudge Match, 2 mana, give a creature +1/+1, choose an enemy creature, and they fight. Probably the strongest removal in the game, in my opinion, is Grudge Match, because it's 2 mana, and oftentimes that extra power could actually lead to winning the game earlier. Then we have Gas-Staff Agitators. Very strong card, potentially might need to be nerfed at some point because of how good it is in Nissa. But here it's a 3/1 for 3, gives you the Fragile Met Gem, and if you have the 2 extra, which includes that Fragile Gem, it flips and gives you another one. Very strong card, and probably just a staple for any deck that has Domri or Nissa, or a lot of decks that just run red outside of maybe Chandra. And we have Hermit of the Flock, Moonlight. Debuts to summon a sheep, and that sheep is a 1/1, but after he flips, because of his Moonlight ability, you will heal 2 for every friendly sheep. Very strong card, and one interesting play he could do is turn 7, play 2 Hermit of the Flocks, get 2 sheeps, and then Hunter's Moon to flip them, which will make them flip, become 4/4s, they gain haste, can swing, and you will actually gain 8 life because you have 2 sheeps for each of your hermits, which we did not see in the tournament games. However, could be a very strong ad along with the Hunter's Moon here. And of course, the only trap in the deck is 2 copies of Worm's Wake. Very simple, 3 mana. At the end of your opponent's turn, you summon a 5/5 Worm. Good card for 3 mana. That was pretty much staple in Domri for a while, but because of the buff to Treetop, a lot of people stopped playing Worm's Wake because getting hit with a Treetop and denying your turn 3 could be critically bad. We of course have Daybreak Ranger, 4/3 for 4, Moonlight, Reach, and Ward. It debuts to mark a creature, and then when Moonlight triggers by having the extra 2 mana, it flips and deals damage equal to its power to the marked creature. However, when it does flip, if it flips the same turn, it will lose the ward because the transformed creature does not have ward. Then we get into some of the big stuff. We have Ulrich the Outlander, Moonlight Haste. On attack, it adds a random creature with Moonlight to your hand. 5/5 for 5. And then when he flips, because of the extra 2 mana, he gives a random upgrade to each friendly creature you control. Notably, he does not give it to himself, as he already gets Trample. And he's a very strong card. I think a lot of Nihilists like running the Ulrich the Outlander as well. But here it's very good because there's a lot of creatures that he likes to put on the board. He can Hunter's Moon. While Ulrich already has haste, he'll be swinging actually as a 6/6 with Trample. Then he's running 2 copies of Centaur Sage, 5/5 for 6. After you summon a creature, you draw a card. This is a creature that would probably be better usually with Crags as the land, but here it does give some card advantage, and if it does stay on the board, it could potentially take over the game by giving you a large amount of creatures with card advantage, as there is a large amount of creatures in this deck. Then we have 2 copies of Lava Wave, 8 mana, deals 6 damage to each enemy creature. Phenomenal card, pretty much a staple in most Armor lists, and very strong with Gat Staff to be able to do it as early as turn 6, turn 5 if you go second. A lot of the time, since it's a one-sided board wipe, it will allow you to push for game, and I like running the card personally in Nissa over other options that you could run for your colored slots. Lastly, we have 2 copies of Craterhoof Behemoth, 5/5 for 8, haste, gives all other creatures in your hand and field +2/+2. Phenomenal endgame step card here, and it will usually allow you to push even through fields that would normally not be traded, and gives you incremental card advantage by trading up against your opponent's creatures. And one of the interesting things here is there's no Crush of Worms, there's no Pity Me and Might. He only has 2 8-drops, 2 6-drops, is 1/5, and everything is 4 or below. A lot of the creatures are 3 or below, except for the 1 Daybreak, which usually is going to be played for either 5 or 6, along with the Hunter's Moon. So overall, very aggressive lined list. A lot of people might go for Treetops over the Archers, but here the Archers paid off against Flyers. So next, we're going to go over his sideboard. That was an interesting sideboard as it was only 4 cards. Okay, so as you can see here, his sideboard is a simple 4-card sideboard, 2 open world trackers, which are 3/2 for 3. That says another creature you control fights another creature an opponent controls, and 2 Elite Forest cards. 3/2 for 3 to draft a card, 1 that is Plummet for 2 mana to destroy a creature, 1 that is Naturalize to destroy an artifact, and 1 that I forget the name of that fully heals a creature. So he actually sideboarded in the finals 1 copy of each to be able to deal with the Flyers and be able to trade up, and that worked out to be a very effective strategy. By limiting his sideboard cards, he essentially did not have any distractions because he only knew what he wanted to decide in certain matchups. But I would recommend that you do run a full 6-card sideboard, since you are allowed to run a 6-card sideboard, and that Tracker Snare could arguably deserve a slot here for being able to deal with certain debuts that could be strong, like Icing Death. Another option could be to run Crush Worms in the sideboard for decks that he might have to go over the top of. But overall, Frost did win the game with this deck and this sideboard. So congratulations to Frost, your Mythic League 5 tournament. Thank you for watching this video, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Peace!
お願いです。ネット配信だしチャンネル登録者数少ないし、再生数も毎回大したことないし。Oppers fool me, so I put my mask on. Keep it to me, gotta keep the night high. Flexing Louis V, yeah, keep my cash on. Sticking true to me, I never had a gas off. I'ma pop off, yeah, I said I'll pop off.